Today we are solving quadratic equations. We're going to be factoring, using square roots, all of that good stuff. In example 1, we are going to solve quadratic equations by factoring. And you need to remember that with factoring, you need to get one side equal to 0. You also need to keep x squared positive. Your life will be a lot easier if x squared is positive. You don't want to let your x squared term be negative. So in example A, we would need to subtract 24 on both sides. And you don't have to show every step. You can just write x squared plus 5x minus 24 equals 0. Some of you have gotten really, really good at factoring. Some of you still think that you don't like it, but you actually love it. If you need to write out blank times blank equals negative 24, blank plus blank equals 5, you can. If you want to skip that and just write the parentheses, that's what I normally do. I normally skip the blanks and I just write the parentheses. If you need to, you can put a dot over 24 and a plus over 5 to help you remember. You're multiplying to get negative 24, you're adding to get 5. So think about ways to multiply to get 24. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8. Would 3 and 8 give us 5? Yeah. So I put x, 3, x, 8, and then I think about the signs. You want the 3 to be negative and the 8 to be positive. If you're trying to add up to a positive number, the bigger number needs to be positive, the smaller number needs to be negative, so that it's 8 minus 3 to give you 5. This is the factored form. Now what are the solutions? X equals 3, x equals negative 8. Now technically, even if you're solving the simplest of equations, technically you should always check your solutions. But do the instructions tell us to check our solutions? They don't. So if we didn't, it's not like we aren't finishing the problem, right? Technically you should check, but you don't need to on these. X equals 3, x equals negative 8. Make sure you pay close attention to the instructions, because if you really need to check your solutions, it'll probably say in the instructions, check your solutions, check for extraneous solutions, something like that. Okay, in B, what do we need to do first in B? But if we subtract 3x squared, then our x squared term is negative. So I want to leave this here. We need to add 4 subtract 4, you guys were right, and add 11x. I'm going to do that all in one step. If we add 11x, we will have plus 11x on the left. If we subtract 4, we'll have minus 4 on the left, and then we'll have 0 on the right. Do you see anything about example B that is different from example A? The 3. When you have a number multiplied in front of your x squared, you have to multiply that number with the last number. Multiply your A and your C. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. So we are looking for two numbers that multiply to give us negative 12 and add up to 11. So could we do that with 1 times 12?
Yes.
Yeah. If we did negative 1 and positive 12, and I'm going to write those here with x's, negative 1x plus 12x. It's kind of like I took this middle term 11x and split it into negative 1x and 12x. If I were to combine negative 1x and 12x, I still have 11x. Do you all agree with that? So we basically uncombined the like terms, put your 3x squared in front, put your minus 4 after. We have created a 4-termed polynomial. Do you remember how to factor something that is 4 terms? Do you remember now?
Yeah.
Split it down the middle. What do the first two terms have in common? Just x. So if we divide both of those by x, we would be left with 3x minus 1. Do the same thing in the second group. What do 12x and 4 have in common? Positive 4. Divide both of those by 4. We're left with 3x minus 1. So the stuff in the parentheses is what would be left if you divided those terms by the thing they have in common. Okay, this is the distributive property written out. These two parentheses should match. They should be exactly the same. So one of your sets of parentheses is the one that matches. The other set of parentheses is x plus 4. And the order that you write those doesn't matter. You can have x plus 4 written first, or you can have it written second. Okay, x plus 4, that's the easy one to solve. X equals negative 4. What about the other one? Off to the side, you can write down 3x. Why aren't you writing? 3x minus 1 equals 0. Add 1 to both sides. Divide both sides by 3. X equals 1/3. Now, I want to teach you how to be strategically lazy, right? Strategic laziness is amazing, right? Okay. Take a look at that answer, x equals 1/3. Do you see that answer in the parentheses? Do you see where that answer came from if you just look at the parentheses? So see how it's minus 1, but it became positive? See how with the 4, it's positive 4, and the answer is negative? So take the opposite of the number divided by whatever's in front of the x. So the opposite of negative 1 is positive 1. Divided by 3 is 1/3. That's how you can get to that answer without having to go off to the side and solve the equation. Okay, if I gave you a couple of problems like A and B, do you feel like you could do them on your own? Yeah. Okay. All right, solving with square roots. You need to get x squared by itself to solve using square roots. So in A, you cannot take the square root of both sides right now. First, you have to get rid of the 5. How do you get rid of the 5? Divide by 5. 80 divided by 5 is 16. To undo a square, you use a square root. So we are going to square root both sides. The square root of x squared is x. We did that a lot in the last chapter. Now, with the square root of 16, what is the square root of 16? 4. But when we put a square root into a problem, we have to consider that there is both a positive and a negative root. We need to put a plus minus in front of it. Positive 4 squared is 16. 16 times 5 is 80. Negative 4 squared is also positive 16. Positive 16 times 5 is 80. So both of these are possible answers, 4 and negative 4. You can also write this as x equals 4, x equals negative 4, if you want to really see that there are two separate answers. What do we need to do in B? Multiply by 9. 16 times 9 is a pretty big number, 144. Square root both sides. R equals 12. What's my answer missing?
Plus minus.
Plus minus. Woo, not so fast, dude.
Oh.
R equals plus or minus 12. R equals 12. R equals negative 12. Okay, in example 3, we are looking at square roots when there's parentheses. We need to not distribute. We need to get the parentheses squared by itself. You cannot distribute the square. 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 What can you not do? You cannot distribute the square. Okay. Instead, get whatever is squared by itself. In A, the parentheses are squared. The parentheses are currently by themselves. To get rid of the square, we square root. The square root undoes the square and eliminates the need for the parentheses. So we just have x minus 3. On the right side, what is the square root of 25? Plus or minus 5. There are two ways to finish this problem. So I'm going to draw a little squiggly thing. This is my way. I add 3 to both sides and say that my answer is positive 3 plus or minus 5. But you can't leave your answer like that. You need to do the math. So do this once using plus. 3 plus 5 is 8. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. There's my 2 solutions. Here's another way to do this. A student in my last class said, split it up into x minus 3 equals 5, x minus 3 equals negative 5, solve both equations to get your 2 answers. If the 3 plus or minus 5 looks confusing to you or you forget to finish it, then this method might be better for you. Realizing that this thing means positive 5 and negative 5, you need to do the problem once with 5, once with negative 5 to get your 2 solutions. Add 3 to both sides, x equals 8. Why does it keep doing that? No, don't go back yet. And adding 3 to both sides, x equals negative 2. Okay, what should we do first in B? Plus 8. So we have x plus 6 squared equals 8. Now we can square root both sides. Problem. What is the square root of 8? We can take the square root of 8 and simplify it. How can it be broken up? Square root of 4, square root of 2. Remember, you want to use a perfect square. The square root of 4 is 2. So this is 2 square root of 2. Now, how do you finish this problem? Subtract 6, and where should that negative 6 go? Write the negative 6, and then the plus minus 2 square root of 2. If they ever asked you for decimals, in your calculator, you would do negative 6 plus 2 times the square root of 2, hit enter. Then you would do negative 6 minus 2 times the square root of 2, and hit enter. Okay, with parentheses, you cannot distribute the square. Get the parentheses by themselves, then square root. All right, time for your assignment. I will get you an assignment sheet soon, I promise. But here's 10.1 day 1 book assignment. We are going to do example 4 and 5 tomorrow, and then there will be another book assignment for that. So here's 10.1 day 1 book assignment.